Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Hoss Talks Boss. I am here with Steve Hoffman, VP of Engineering here at Percona. I'm also here with potentially the lawn guys. So if you hear lawnmowers outside, it's because, they have decided to curse me once again with, podcast visitors outside. But hopefully they will disappear shortly. So, how are you, Steve?
I'm doing spectacular, Matt. How are you today?
I am good. I am good. So many of you may have not met Steve before, but Steve's been here for what about 2 years now?
2 years, yeah.
2 years, 2 full years at Percona, and Steve runs the engineering teams. And so his job is to make sure that all the software that you guys are trying out and using is stable and performant and has all the features that you want. So, when you have something that you need, Steve is the guy who helps get the team to, prioritize it. Steve's the guy who makes your life, wonderful and hell at the same time. So, congratulations, Steve.
I think if you ask the team, they would tell you Steve only does the part that makes your life hell. They do the stuff that makes your life wonderful. But if you want to give me credit for making lives wonderful, I will take it.
All right, fair enough. So Steve, you've been doing engineering for quite some time, and Percona is a little different than your background, right? So you've done a lot of SaaS apps, you've done a lot of different applications, but coming to Percona and jumping into this, deep open source experience, deep, like remote work across the globe contributors. I mean, maybe talk to us a little bit about the difference that you've experienced that you've come here. Like from a classic engineering job that you've had in the past to this new kind of thing. What was that like?
Well, I mean, the shock for me was, I've never shipped software to a user, right? We've always delivered it via the web. And so the constraints that I wasn't prepared for, like number one, we don't have to have installation instructions. And it seems so simple in hindsight, but like your mind just glosses over so many points because you've done the install half a dozen times on your own. And so it's just, oh, do step one, step two, step three. And when you go to write it down, it's sort of that classic, have kids document making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich where, they forget to say, take off the lid and stick the knife with the butter spreading end in first. Like all of those things that we take for granted, we miss. The other side is like, you have to put twice as much effort into being correct on the first try. As I learned the hard way, once we ship it, it's really hard to unring that bell. So a bug, some incomplete package, a case that we hadn't considered becomes kind of a ticking time bomb, and we don't have the ability to go user by user and sort of force them to upgrade, right? It's sort of how can we put that information in front of them as quickly as possible. So we spend a lot of time covering the different mediums where we do it in the apps themselves as best we can, but then on our forums and blog posts, just any way to announce hey, there's a new version and it fixes something we missed on the last pass. Oops. And then probably the last big one for me is the idea of breaking changes. We open source. I've never created open source software, been a big part of consuming open source. Certainly like to give back in the open source, but like this, we're actually putting it out there and releasing open source software. People find new and creative ways to use it, which we don't always plan for. But that creates sort of an obligation to keep it as consistent as we can. So, where I'm told on a couple instances, well, oh, when in the SaaS world, we did it this way, so we should just convert everything over to that way. Like, well, yeah, but it's twice as much work because we still have to maintain the old one. Like, why? They're like, well, because people have built it into their automation, to their continuous integration environments. Like, we can't just change this unless you're ready to increment to another major version. Like, oh, okay. So those were some of the differences. Like those took a little bit of getting used to before I finally came to terms and stopped fighting the fact that there are two different models for software delivery. Each has their pluses and each has their we'll call them little surprises.
Now, we've got a very diverse engineering staff across the world. And, that's always a challenge to manage. How have you kind of, what are some tips and tricks you can give to others who are starting this because now everyone's kind of gone remote because of COVID, and now whether they go back to the office or not, maybe
Yeah.
not. And so I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there who are looking for that kind of expertise, especially in the engineering area, where it's like, I used to have guys who all sat in a bullpen. We all worked together. We got together with a whiteboard. We drew out what we wanted. Now we don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tip number one, if you're not funny in your native language, you're even less funny in 34 different languages. So anybody who's thinking
True.
about managing a globally diverse team, take that one to heart.
I'm glad I'm funny in 68 different languages.
Well, I'm still working on the first one, but I
just
hope to
saying.
get there someday. No, I know. That's why I appreciate your mentorship. It's helped me tremendously. But exactly what you said. With so many different cultures represented, there's just subtle little differences. Expressions that are common, especially in the U.S. Like I've used this one on more than one occasion. I actually spend more time explaining globally what a Monday morning quarterback is than people just getting what it's. I mean, obviously the whole team knows it now because I have explained it so many times. But those little idioms, I guess, that we use don't always translate, and sometimes we just shoot right over them. So,
hit a home run, right? Hit a home run with this one.
Hit a home run.
Oh,
yeah. And I don't get most of the soccer references.
What a
either,
swing and a miss,
Yes. All of those. And like you said, I do miss elements of not having everybody in the room. I think, the thing I liked about NG, well, I'll put it this way. Last couple offices I've worked at fell in love with these open office floor plans, which I'm going to suppress my opinion on them. But one of the benefits that they had is sort of everybody in the same area. And if two devs were talking over here and you were talking with somebody over here, you could kind of hear and say, hang on. Oh, hey, I think we're talking about something similar, right? And everybody swing their chairs to the middle, quick powwow, move right past whatever issue we're facing at the time. That's almost impossible right now. Like, with all digital meetings, we can't talk over each other, so there can really only be one conversation going on at a time. We are busier than ever. I don't know how every other company is, but Percona, we're busier than ever, and so if it's very easy to get sort of the meeting fatigue and this really not really about me, so I'll just focus on the stuff that I need to get done, and I'll keep one ear open, which basically is saying I'm not listening at all. So, I mean, some of those challenges I think are significant, right? And the other side, which we learned probably as a result of the pandemic, is Percona has done a great job at really making sure that while we're a fully remote workforce, we still make the personal connections, right? We still have opportunity to get together face to face, have a drink, tell some jokes, have some laughs, watch people go by. And the pandemic has hurt that. And I don't think we realize just how vital that is in the grand scheme of things, that it's such a significant part of relationship building and delivering software because, for one, all the teams at Percona Engineering have a sort of a creator and consumer relationship, right? The product, the PMM product consumes our database software. Our operators consume the database software. We work with our backup software. So all of these things have these interrelationships. So we have to have those connections because it's easy to stop and say, well, I did my part. I did task A, B, and C. I don't know what happens to it next. We'll just ship it on down the line and someone else will deal with it. So, those are just some of those challenges, and none of them are unsolvable, but I think, they take just a little bit of extra time and energy to think about what the best solutions are and sort of not stopping there and, keeping an open mind to things change. Maybe there are better solutions.
Yeah. And I mean, I know, Steve, you have had many great experiences, remotely and in the office, but there's one experience that I have to ping you about the office, right? Now, the other week, Steve and I went to lunch. It was Percona's 15th anniversary, and he was shocked that I knew this story. But it seems that, Steve was also not only in charge of engineering, but he was also in charge of physical security at the office because he was the biggest guy at the office. Steve being a hockey player and a hockey coach. So Steve, just to kind of set up, this story, Steve's running engineering. He's got, I call it a data center. He calls it a closet, but it's a room. It's a room. And one day he comes in to find what, Steve?
A squatter.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with a squatter, Steve, comes into the office. They're noticing things missing over a few week period. The different things that are odd, right? Right? Is that how it went?
Not quite. I'll back up. So we're like early 2000s, very small startup, renting some office space, and I believe at this point we had finally stepped up to like a real data center for our production stuff, but like all of our non-production stuff and even some of our backup stuff all ran out of the office. We had I think we had a T3 installed at the time, and so we had decent bandwidth back and forth between the primary data center. At any rate, we took the front closet of the office and we put an old medical equipment, like an imaging server rack, and we just put all of our non-production stuff and our backup site stuff in there, and we called it a day. These were old compact ProLiant servers. They generated a ton of heat. They were loud as all get out. So we put them as far away from anybody as we possibly could. We didn't have a receptionist, so it was just sort of like convenient. We had good monitoring, right? So I wasn't actually running engineering at the time. I was the lead sysadmin, the IT manager for the group, and I was getting pages, and I couldn't figure out what the pages were at night because it was controlled by a landlord or whatever, the building management company. The heat shut off at night, or it lowered to a certain temperature. The lights shut out so that they would conserve electricity, wouldn't leave it on all night. And it was relatively cold outside, but I'm getting alerts that said that the server room is overheating, or our network closet, for lack of a better term, is overheating. And so, I live 25 minutes away, so I tried my damnedest to avoid it as long as possible. And to make a long story short, I went into the office and, badged in, got through the front door, and I look and I can see the ventilation system that I had sort of installed with my jigsaw and a Home Depot grate was blocked on the inside with cardboard, and I didn't make any sense to me. And so, as soon as I opened the door, there was a person in there, living in the office, and went into that room for warmth. And we didn't keep it locked. We're a small company, everybody knew it was in there, and it was nothing exciting. So, ran down the hallway like a scared little person, and screamed out like, "I'm going to call the police if you don't get out." And unbeknownst to us, they had sort of been hiding out there for a while, maybe not weeks or months, but I went back and, some rudimentary footage that we had, you could see they just sort of wandered in one day, again, unmonitored door during the day, and found a place to camp out. We just didn't go in there often enough to know until the overheat page came. So yeah, that was my scariest moment probably ever. Office space at night.
Wait, you're missing some of these important pieces here. Now, you had to bribe this person to leave.
Well, I mean, there was a certain threatening with the police, which we thought was the more enticing one. There was a bribe of food. We'll.
But wasn't that what finally sealed the deal? Is you had to give her your sandwich?
It was. Well, no, I had to buy it. I had to actually go get it. There's a Bojangles up the road that was open till 2 a.m. or something like that, which is the only thing that was open in the park at that time. And so actually, okay, I'll go out this far. And so got the person into the lobby of the office, so they wouldn't leave the building, but they would at least leave the lobby so I could lock the door. And it was sort of on my honor. And I went and got the sandwich, came back, and got a bag of I guess it was Bojangles biscuits. I don't remember exactly what I got, but I know that's how we were able to clear the premises. No police were called, and that's how it went down.
And now, this is pre a lot of the physical security issues that people really, changed a lot of their policies and everything else, but. That's one of those stories that you're like, yeah, that's kind of why you have to have those, watch who badges in after you and tries
Yes.
to walk in after you. And
we implemented all kinds of security policy after that. I had just a very basic webcam that was taking a picture every minute, and we called it a day. And I learned really quick to use a couple of open source tools to string that together into a video and play it. Basically, I could watch the entire overnight in about 3 minutes every morning, so that I could see, did anything happen overnight that we should be worried about? And as the software improved, we were able to do basic motion detection, which I did end up shutting off, because every time a car would pull into the roundabout, their headlights would shine through, and it was just enough change, because there was no heat sensing or anything like that. It was just enough change to trigger it. And
Ah,
so, again, the whole purpose was for me to sleep easy at night, not get up every 15 minutes. So, yeah, we had better badging. We put, card access on the server room or network closet door, whichever you want to call it. Video cameras in a lot more places. Yeah, it definitely changed the way that we treat security in that small company. We had just sort of taken it for granted up to that point. It didn't, it, I suppose that the follow on is it only helped to a certain extent, right? We put all of our protections around the off hours, and we didn't really do anything different during the day, and the doors auto unlocked at 8 a.m. So on more than one specific occasion, I think it was 2 times, we had a art vendor with sort of a portfolio of artwork who would just beeline to the back of the building. And the one day I remember seeing her kind of blow by my door, because I was towards the front but not in the front. And of course, she goes right back to like the CEO or the CTO's office or something like that, and is trying to sell art. And they're like, "Can you please get this person out of here?" So I'm trying to pull this wonderfully nice lady who had not been able to shower in quite some time down the hall, and she pull away from me and stop in the next office and try and sell something. Like, you can't stay, you've got to get out. So the next evolution was making sure that our badging system did not auto unlock the doors. Instead, we had a little press for service button so that we could capture all that. So yeah, we evolved quickly.
I
Fail
can imagine.
forward.
I mean, you'd have to, you'd have to. And over the time, right? You've evolved, not only your security, but you've kind of moved into different areas. So back then it was the early days, a little bit of the wild west.
Hmm.
And so you've matured as a leader, and I think all of our security standards have matured. So hopefully we don't see that type of thing happen too often at many companies. But you know coming in over those years, those early days, when did you start to really focus on building your applications using the open source stack or using components of
It probably was in about 2010. I joined a company that they did email distribution, was what they did. So they built sort of email distribution software, and I had already been a big tinkerer, a lot of programming on PHP, and so knew elements of it. But like, that company showed me, bringing all these different pieces together, how much it accelerates the development process. I think I've been at a couple organizations where it was sort of, we pride ourselves on doing it all ourselves, and it's so inefficient, right? You just don't have, number one, you don't have access to the things that you want to change. You can't make them better because you're sort of getting an off the shelf solution. I spent quite a bit of time, working for the state of North Carolina, and almost all of our solutions were, this is what you get, right? We're going to give you the binary CD, you're going to load it, you're going to run it, you're going to agree to the terms of service, and that's it. And tweaks and tunes just were not on the menu. So I think at that company, I started seeing the real value of not just using open source software for the smaller things that needed to accomplish, but really the big things that you needed to accomplish, and how you could take 3 or 4 different products, put them together, and get this amazing result. And again, I think it also showed me that it comes with an element of responsibility, right? You can consume all your life. There's no requirement to give back. But I think for me, there was always a reward in, monitoring the forums and someone asking a question. I remember there one was about, integrating with multiple Active Directories, and it's just like, holy cow, like I had to do this for my company. We got bought by another company, merged our 2 systems together, but we still had lots of fragments. So we needed both employees from both entities to be able to get into the services. And so I just modified the code, and it just didn't dawn on me. That was like the aha moment was, okay, here you go. Like I'll submit a PR. We didn't call them PRs at the time, but I'll submit a PR to get this out there, and lo and behold, it gets picked up, and now it's sort of I think they've since rewritten it, but it became a mainstream option, and this was a WordPress plugin for integrating with Active Directory at the time. So it was really cool to see how that works. And now at a place like Percona, the entire business is built around that model, right? Not just consuming, but consuming, sharing freely, giving back, taking input, working with people, enabling them to do things themselves, and sort of, I don't know, without your hand open, like, okay, I helped you. What are you going to do? Without that constraint, it actually makes it freer, more enjoyable to do it. So
Now, so you mentioned that early time, and you mentioned Percona and giving freely. Now, your first kind of jump into Percona was, here's PMM, make it better, right?
Yep.
Like your priority is PMM, so Percona Monitoring and Management.
Yeah.
And Percona Monitoring and Management has a pretty lofty vision in the future. And maybe tell us a little bit about where we view PMM evolving to. And then maybe talk to us a little bit about some of those challenges in getting us from where we are today to there.
Well, I mean, if I start 2 years ago, when I was entrusted the PMM product, PMM stands for Percona Monitoring and Management, but there was zero management. So it was just Percona monitoring. Like, you couldn't actually do anything to the systems that you monitored. You could only learn that there was something not right. And so one of our biggest transitions is we're really emphasizing putting that second M into the product line so that we can do management. And we started with an external integration with an alerting system so that you could take more proactive measure. Now we've built that into the tool, and we've now actually just released a technical preview of backup management, where we can partner with some of the existing Percona suite, Percona Extra Backup and Percona Backup for Mongo, and you can now kick off backups right there in PMM, which I think is a huge component of systems management. Backups is one of those unsexy things that no one gets excited about until they really, really need it and find out that they didn't have a great backup strategy to begin with. So that's part of our vision is number one, adding that second M. And then the other side of it is sort of, helping move the market in a new direction. A big piece for the PMM product is its database as a service offering. And so we're really excited to be building that, because I think that's a big enabler for all the people who don't care about what it takes to get a good setup of a database running. My application needs a port to connect to. I don't care if it's MySQL, Postgres, or Mongo. I just want to connect my app to the database and do my thing. Please shortcut that. And so, Amazon, I think, is the gold standard for what they've done with RDS. The problem is there's quite a few trade-offs with that. And the big trade-offs are Amazon maintains control of the infrastructure. And as a systems person from way back, there were 4 vital statistics that I needed to help me understand really where the root of the problem were. So if I can't see CPU, memory, disk IO, and network load, without those things, I really can't make a full determination of where do I focus my energy in fixing. And an example I had given to someone the other day was, as simple as CPU can be 100% pegged, but the solution is different if 100% of that is in user space, or if it's in system space, or if it's even in IO weight. So, those things have correlations, and they sort of determine where you go next in your investigative path to resolve problems. So, PMM's database as a service offering actually enables customers to maintain that control, right? So you can actually use the unlimited scalability of something like Amazon or Google to load your databases on there and sort of extract that away. Your end user I just want MySQL, 4 nodes, this much memory, this much CPU, give me a connection string, get out of my hair. And I think we're helping bring that. And then on the flip side, when something goes wrong, your systems people, your DevOps folks, your database people have the ability to that raw access or that raw data that will help them pinpoint the problem and go through the refinement process of either correcting it in software, correcting it in hardware, or configuration.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that ultimate vision of being able to enable people is important, right?
Yeah,
I mean, PMM already has quite a bit of functionality that enables people to find those problem areas or those issues. So it's really taking it to the next step, if you will.
that's it. That's it. And we're not stopping there, right? I mean, I think, I'm talking more about sort of what's in flight right now. But at the end of the day, I mean, if Percona's reputation is around sort of our credibility in the market space, telling people what is good practice, what is good decision making, we're trying to speed that delivery up through things like I wouldn't call it artificial intelligence, but programmed intelligence advisors that will be constantly monitoring your system and looking for little optimizations. Could you change configuration? Could you maybe modify this query some? Is there a better system profile that would give you better performance and throughput? Like just little things like that that we can be always monitoring for. And with a cloud delivery model, as new ones come out, no action required on your part. Just, yesterday we didn't know we had this potential lurking problem, and today there's a suggestion that says, with just a couple more gigabytes of memory allocated to your database, which your system already has, by the way, you should be able to get additional performance overhead on your database queries. So things like that.
Okay. And when you are talking to, one of the things I know a lot of people want contributions. They want to help with, different pieces of software. The open source space is very vibrant and very active, but a lot of people have fear that they're not good enough to contribute, or they're not good enough to work at, a company, whether it's us or another open source company, that they feel a little shy to, go out there and, help people out, or to, to contribute or work at that company. I know that there's some of the smartest people I know, who have worked at Percona. They've said, hey, I waited 3 years before I even applied because I just wasn't good enough.
Right.
Or so there's that mentality, that almost imposter syndrome, if you will, for good developers. When you are looking at people who are, contributing a lot of code, who are, being able to push a project like this forward, whether it's internal or external, what sort of, key things do those people have? Like what are the markers, if you will, that you look for, that you say, hey, that person really, that they've got it.
Yeah. Can I give credit to someone who
Of
taught it to
course.
me?
Sure.
So I worked for a CTO named Ralph Kasuba. This is back at the email delivery company, and he had this philosophy on hiring that you looked first at attitude, then at aptitude, and then dead last at ability. And that what I've learned, the part that he left out is that, you know, the right attitude, that I can get things done, that there is no insurmountable challenge, and the right aptitude, just being able to piece together the things that I do know and apply them to a problem that I don't know, that can actually overcome the vast majority of challenges. And if you focus there and hire those people, bring them on board, that solves an awful lot. Now, the ability is sort of a piece of it, but I think high attitude, high aptitude does a lot to overcome modest ability. So in many cases, you don't need to be a super senior, which I think that's a struggle that every company I've ever worked at with is just always, we need to hire the most senior, of the smart of the smart. But like, let's be fair. Sometimes those people come with baggage in the form of arrogance, and that's tough. That hurts a team. You'd rather have people with the right attitude and the right aptitude, who with a little bit of investment, with a little bit of wiggle room and freedom to grow, do amazing things. And even I've seen that even here at Percona. This is something that's stuck with me since 2011, and I have brought it to every company that I've had a leadership role at, and I believe almost all of them are still doing it today. And like I said, it's just such a wonderful way to look at sort of people, because you give them a lot more benefit of the doubt. And when people feel like they're being trusted, that whole fear of I'm not good enough and I'm not smart enough, if you can, give them the confidence to just take a stab at it, be blown away with what they can produce. And I think that's what you see a lot of Perconians are, right? That thought they weren't smart enough. Most people probably said, well, if you can't answer this super complex question on the spot, you're probably not smart enough. Instead of saying, use whatever resources are at your disposal, figure it out, take a stab,
Right.
you know.
It's that curiosity. It's the willingness to try things, but also be humble about
Exactly. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's, and other people want to work with that, right? Like I get the biggest energy from a good collaborative environment where we can bounce off ideas and we can say stupid things and people will say, I don't think you want to chase that one down. And you're like, yeah, you're probably right. I was just talking out loud, whereas I've been in other environments where it was crickets because nobody wanted to be the one to throw out a suggestion that might be interpreted as dumb, and therefore no dumb ideas were ever spoken, but also very few good ideas were ever spoken. So there's a big trade-off there. And I think if you start building that collaboration and that trust, and you have the right uh, sort of cultural mindset of we're going to achieve this together, you get great things from it.
And with that, what sort of contributions or what kind of things are you looking for people to contribute back to, whether it's PMM or one of the other projects? I mean, as a engineering, the head of engineering here, I'm sure that there's a litany of things that you want, and everybody always assumes it's going to be like, it's this complicated thing. But really, what are you looking for the most?
Uh, we'll take anything. I think people assume because Percona is a business, right? A money making business that we're only interested in things that directly support our roadmap. Well, that's nice. I'm certainly not going to say no if you want to work on something that we also want to work on. But at the end of the day, what we want is the satisfaction of knowing that we've built an extendable enough product that can support what you need to accomplish at the same time as what Percona is trying to accomplish. So I'm always curious to see which directions people are taking it. Some things belong on our roadmap, and we never thought to put them there because we didn't know. In other instances, we're not going down that route, but I think we like helping people, give them sort of here, look at this is how we solved it for this. Maybe that'll give you a head start on that. No, by the way, if you want, throw it at us and you can save somebody else the effort. Again, it's not priority for us, but that's how we're going to get to that end goal of being able to support multiple configurations and have lots of options, is by welcoming it. And it doesn't just have to be code contribution. I mean, I told you the very biggest problem that I had in joining an open source company that shipped software was documentation. Even if you find a typo or a mistake, or we glossed over some steps, that saves other users hours, and we are sometimes blind to that. I know the steps because I've done them so many times. I don't read the instructions anymore. So the fact that one new step popped in there, all I have to do is mentally insert step 7A after 7, and I'm good. And if it doesn't make it into the documentation, we don't know. So contributions can be as simple as, hey, you missed a step in the documentation, or you had a typo, or this was referring to an old version. Went ahead and fixed that for you. And here's the link to the PR. Love it. I mean, to me, that's being a part of the community, right? You can contribute in so many different ways, be it bringing ideas to light, just log them in Jira. We would love to see this. Fixing documentation, contributing code that we're working on, contributing things that only you care about. All of this is all pieces to that bigger puzzle of open source software.
I think the other one that people don't realize that is probably the gold or the oil of the engineering is feedback. Simply telling us how you've used something, how you perceive it, why it works or doesn't work, or how it could be better. Even if you can't code anything or contribute anything technical, just saying like, this doesn't make sense. This is how I think you should approach it. This is how I've seen other people do it. It's such valuable feedback.
Oh, totally. And I think what I like is seeing how other people are getting it too. Here we kind of rely on people submitting feedback via Jira bug reports or improvement requests, feature requests. We have our forums, so we try to keep our teams very active on the forums. We have our Discord channel that we, again, fairly active from our engineers. So we just understanding what people are trying to accomplish helps us hone in on it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we think we're reasonably accurate in what we're trying to do, but these are just highly educated guesses, and getting that feedback about the problems being solved and why they're important and what you're really trying to accomplish. If nothing more than that, it either gives validation to our direction, or it helps nudge us a few ticks to the left or right so that we can sort of readjust focus and make sure that, it's not about being Steve's baby or even Peter's baby, in terms of a product that we deliver. Does it satisfy and meet the needs of the people on the other end of the keyboard? That's who we build the software for. Doesn't matter if it's a database server backup software, operator, monitoring tool, it's got to meet your needs. Otherwise, anything we do is just pumping our own chests out. You got to get enjoyment out of it. You got to get use out of it.
All right, Steve, thank you for stopping by, chatting with us a little bit, telling us a little bit about your background and about where PMM's headed and how we can all help.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. This was far less painful than I thought it would be.
Always less painful than you thought it would be. In fact, the crowd loves it.
Yeah. Seeing me squirm.
There you go.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
All right. Wow, what a great episode that was. We really appreciate you coming and checking it out. We hope that you love open source as much as we do. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to us on the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And of course, tune in to next week's episode. We really appreciate you coming and talking open source with us.